Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. So this is going to be the second part to the LCP first impression / review. If you guys haven't watched the first part of this whole kind of unfortunate series, I will be sure to post a link and go ahead and give it a watch because it'll give you guys an idea on what I first experienced with the LCP II. So if you've been following my various social media accounts other than YouTube, you'll know that I briefly got the LCP II working again from the major issue that I had before, which was a dead trigger. To give you an idea right away, the trigger is dead again. The problem that I thought before, I was completely wrong. It is not any sort of a pin that goes in that tiny little hole there. I originally thought it was the hammer pivot pin, which it is not at all. It is actually this tiny little spring. If you guys can see right here, this tiny little spring that should not be in that position. So this is actually the trigger spring, which obviously gives pressure to the trigger itself and allows the whole firearm to function correctly. Ideally, the trigger pin should be placed basically directly backwards towards the back end of the slide where your rear sights are. That's what's keeping tension on it, and you guys can see that basically it's slipped somehow off of the trigger bar, which is right here, and is facing straight up in the air, which it should not be. One of the awesome guys, Nick, that I work with, took the entire gun apart as far as taking out the internal chassis, taking out every spring and pin, and basically refit the spring. But he did say it looked a little bit oddly bent, as far as it should be bent towards the receiver, but it was bent the opposite way out. So we were still completely stumped as to why the spring was having issues, but obviously it still is, and unfortunately I'm going to have to bring it back to him and get it fixed. Hopefully he'll bend it back to the right place, and we can get back on with the actual review itself. So as far as the shooting that took place today, obviously he fixed the spring. First, we got 50 rounds through at the range where I work, which was on my social media accounts, and the 50 rounds went great. So I originally thought the gun was, fixed again, and it was just a fluke, and, I headed back to the range hoping for the best. The downfall from the range today was that I actually made it through over 200 rounds at the range today. It was going great at first with just the brass case ammunition. I experienced actually 0 malfunctions. Let me repeat that again, 0 malfunctions with the first box of 50 of the Fiocchi brass cased ammunition. So I was super excited, I was pumped, I thought the gun was fixed, I thought everything was fine. I also tried the Federal HST hollow points again. Unfortunately, I did have one failure to feed with those hollow points, however the rest that I tried were 100%. I was trying to take all the human error that I could have put myself on the gun out of the equation. So I was wearing gloves the entire time, and the reason for that is because I was a little bit curious to see if it was actually me causing the failures to eject by simply just limp wristing the gun. I was really holding it as tight as I hold any other firearm while I'm shooting it. However, with such a tiny little gun, there's just simply no mass. And I experienced today, basically, while I was death gripping the gun, I had much better reliability. But I mean, it was to the point where I was literally shaking while I was holding the gun itself while I was shooting it. However, the reliability from that was much better, and the accuracy was a little bit better as well. Once I moved on to the steel case, I had 150 rounds of it, so I had to shoot through it. I wasn't just going to throw it out or get rid of it, so I had to shoot through it. And I soon found out that obviously this gun just does not like steel case ammunition. That's fine. You guys know my stance on a defensive gun being picky about ammunition, but at the end of the day, what I realized is this Ruger is just simply picky about ammunition. It does not like steel case. It was having a really hard time feeding it up, actually getting the case up the feed ramp and into the chamber for whatever reason. You can see multiple times in the video I was having to push the slide forward to get it home and to get it into battery just while normal shooting, which was very odd. It just simply did not like the steel case ammunition, and that's fine. At this point, I honestly just want the gun to be functioning again. I'm kind of not really caring as much of the fact that it's picky about ammunition. I'm caring more that the spring is popping off randomly. That's a huge issue, guys, and it's really frustrating. I was able to shoot the whole day without having any issues. At this point, I was telling myself that it was, again, just picky on ammo, and then finally the spring popped again. It happened off camera when I was putting a magazine in the gun to load it and make ready, and all of a sudden I heard the spring pop, and from there, obviously, I went to shoot, and there was a dead trigger again. Now that I knew what was actually causing the problem, I was actually able to take my knife and push the spring back down into the place underneath the trigger bar. This worked for about a magazine and a half, and then all of a sudden the spring popped off again. So obviously you guys could tell that the issue was getting worse. It wasn't sticking for as long, so there's definitely something wrong with the spring. It's either bent, and I'm going to need another replacement from Ruger, or we can just bend it the proper way and get it working again. But right now the gun is completely unfunctional. I just tried before the video to use a small punch now that I'm at home to get the spring back into the correct place, but it's not doing that, so it looks like Nick is going to have to break the entire gun down again because I am just not familiar with the inner guts of the LCP II enough to actually fully take it apart without probably ruining it and making it even worse. I know a lot of you were looking for this update and probably hoping it was going to be good, and I know I was hoping for it to be really great as well. I want this gun to work. I spent my own money on it. Obviously, I want to get it working again. To be honest with you, at this point, I really just think that it was a dud from the factory. I don't think all LCP2s are like this. I think that they are picky on ammunition. I think they're snappy as hell and tough to shoot, but I definitely don't think that this trigger problem is on other LCPs. It seems that I just had a bad spring from the factory, or it was just assembled improperly at the factory and is causing me to have a lot of issues now. So ultimately, again, just like before in the last video, I can say that when it did shoot, it was still just as snappy as normal, even with gloves on. I will say I'm getting more familiar with the gun. I was able to move back to about 20 to 25 yards and hit very small steel targets, and it was actually somewhat easy to do. It wasn't, you know, the easiest thing in the world, but I'm definitely getting more accurate with this little gun the more that I shoot it. So I'm going to end this video here, guys. It looks like, unfortunately, we're going to have to make a third part once I finally get this spring fixed. On the positive side, I know exactly what is wrong with the gun right now. So I'll be sure to keep you guys updated on my social media accounts. Be sure to give those a follow down in the description. I have a Facebook and an Instagram account. Both of those you guys can stay updated on immediately as I fix these things. You can see them much sooner than the YouTube account. But be sure to look forward to a part 3 of this Ruger review in a couple of days here. So let's hope to get this fixed. I will keep you guys updated, like I said, on social media. And stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.